Well, Shafara, many thanks for having me. Starting from the morning since 6 a.m., as you rightly said a little earlier, Ethiopians across the country have been rolling up their sleeves to plant 600 million seedlings across the country. And of course, more than 84,000 plantation spots have already been identified across the country for today's challenge. And of course, the Green Legacy Initiative was launched back in 2019 by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Since then, the green legacy is becoming a green culture to Ethiopia. And today, Ethiopians are trying their best across the country to meet the 600 million target. To shed light on that, now I'm joined with the Green Legacy Technical Committee Chairman, Dr. Adefris Worko here. Doctor, many thanks for joining me. As we said earlier, Ethiopians are today engaged in massive afforestation program to meet 600 million target. So can you tell us a little bit about the preparation for this challenge?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Indeed, for this year, we had a plan of planting 7.5 billion seedlings across the nation, and these seedlings are of different species, more than 100 species. Some of those seedlings are tree species, some are agroforestry species, including fruit trees, fodder trees, and also the rest are categorized as ornamental species that have been planted in towns, cities to enhance the green cover of the urban areas, because that is also going to be very important. So we have also, this is about seedlings, we have also prepared ourselves in terms of identifying and also geolocating or georeferencing plantation sites across the nation. For this year, to plant these 7.5 billion seedlings, we have identified more than 2 million hectares across the nation, and out of which close to 1 million hectare was supported by technology and the geolocators this year. And then that means that we have been planting these seedlings, including today's plantation or planting seedlings, mainly in those georeferenced sites. And hence, at the grassroots, our peoples are very much ready, sites are prepared, seedlings are prepared, and the plantation have been going on. In fact, we have planted the majority of the seedling prepared for this year. Close to 7 billion seedlings already planted over the last days, weeks I may say. And today, as you mentioned, that our peoples have been marching across the whole nation, from towns to rural areas, from accessible to very remote areas, from plain to mountain areas, to plant these 600 million seedlings, and to make history in the history of tree planting across the world. I mean, there was no history, no news that we have read or have talked about for a country planting 600 million seedlings in a day, and it is going well as we see our progress report so far.
Doctor, we are talking about huge numbers that Ethiopia have been planting over the past years. We've been talking about Ethiopia planting 32.5 billion seedlings over the past 5 years, and the move is continuing unabated. What are the key drivers of this success to achieve this amount of seedlings planting in Ethiopia?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, we have achieved planting those number of seedlings, more than 32 billion seedlings so far in 5 years, and we need to continue, in fact. And I may categorize the drivers for the success in planning and implementing the Green Legacy Initiative as one of the initiatives, as one of the few flagship initiatives of Ethiopia, as push and the pull factors. And if I may, on the push factor first, Ethiopia has been becoming more vulnerable and susceptible to various environmental crises, including climate change, droughts, flood, landslide, and also an overall significant decline in production and the productivity of land, which is resulting in some areas in famine, even in insecurity of food and nutrition, and lack of jobs, so on and so forth. So these are some of the environmental crises that have been facing our farmers, our pastoral communities, who drives them, which drives them, to do something to revert this, vulnerability trend, which have been undermining their socio-economic performance. If you look at, for instance, the deforestation rate in Ethiopia, there was a study done by FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization, taking a panel data of 10 years. That report has given us a very frustrating number, which says that, telling us that Ethiopia has lost 92,000 hectares of forest. And in fact, that forest is already small if you compare to the size of the country. And then the country used to lose this amount of forest every year, 92,000 hectares. That means that 92,000 standard stadium, to clarify this amount. And that is really a massive one. Deforestation means you lose your forest, and as you lose your forest, you lose your rain, you lose your biodiversity, and you lose your ecosystem services associated or protected by that forest. And then we have to really stop this massive challenge. And so these are some of the push factors. And the productivity, as I told you, that Ethiopia is characterized in the Horn of Africa as a country who lost its soil massively, the fertile soil, so that we lose our soil, and then we have to invest billions to buy this inorganic fertilizer, so that we will ensure the productivity of our farmers and the pastoral community. So these challenges are the push factor for our farmers and also for our leaders to determine to do something against this environmental challenge. On the other hand, there is also a pull factors. Our farmers now, they started to learn that planting a tree will bring an economic benefits. For instance, avocados, seedlings or other fruit seedlings which have been planted 5 years ago, now they were able to give some amount of fruit for those farmers. And some of the farmers who planted avocado as a cluster are even able to export these days. And this is those farmers have been becoming a model to influence as a peer to the other farmers. And then by learning from these farmers who have been getting successful in terms of planting seedlings and getting an economic return from what they have been done, now thousands and tens of thousands of farmers have been pulled towards accepting Agri-Legacy Initiative as their own initiative. And of course, Green Legacy Initiative is, constructed in a way that from bottom up way, that it is from people to people, despite, this grand initiative was launched by the Prime Minister, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, as you mentioned earlier. Now it has become, people's property, people's plan, and the people's event. And as you see that many millions of Ethiopians have been waiting a year, they have been celebrating, for instance, this one-day planting, launching, planting, so on and so forth. So these are also, have been contributing to the success of this, the implementation of this grand program. But again, what I need to mention is that, the emphasis and the leadership, clear and vested interest and the leadership given by the government, and from the office of the Prime Minister up to the Kabale head, that this initiative has been received by all government structure as its own plan. That is something very something a different character that makes or characterize the Green Legacy Initiative. If you talk about ecotourism, or maybe energy supply, or maybe other commodities, industry, or so on and so forth, there are only a minister or line ministries who are responsible not to implement those agendas or those commodities. But when you come to the Green Legacy Initiative, this is an initiative of everybody. There is no line ministry or no accountable institution who is saying that Green Legacy is not my initiative. So it is an initiative now becoming by people, for a people, and this has been galvanizing the participation and the ownership of all citizens of the country, thinking that, I have been planting these seedlings to minimize the vulnerability of my people and my country. I have been planting these seedlings today to make Ethiopia better tomorrow. I have been planting seedlings today, to improve the future of my country and also my citizen today. So these are, some of the factors that have been contributing to the success story of the Green Legacy Initiative, compared to those initiatives that we have been initiated and implemented so far.
Doctor, since the beginning of the Green Legacy Initiative back in 2019, we have reached this year, the 6th year. What lessons do you learn as a chairman of the Green Legacy Technical Committee, and what are the peculiar characters that we have at present in terms of learning lessons from past activities?
The persistent planning and the implementation of the Green Legacy over the last 5-6 years has given us the opportunity to draw lessons, actually. In the history of our country, there are many initiatives which have gone and cut off, in a relatively short period of time, so that the country as a country, people as a people, and as an expert as expert did not get enough time to, draw lessons. Where are the strengths? Where are, the bottlenecks that we need to improve? Comparatively, the Green Legacy Initiative was, an initiative considered as an initiative to be implemented over years, and that has given us to draw, to identify what are the lessons, what need to be scaled up and strengthened, and what needs to be corrected, I may say. One of, the lessons that we have drawn is that if, a particular initiative is initiated based on knowledge, based on understanding of the challenges or the issue of a particular country, in this case our country, Ethiopia, and also if a particular initiative is launched based on understanding of the opportunities, what are there, to implement this initiative, then that particular initiative is going to be, be successful. So the Green Legacy Initiative, as I have referred to, is, an initiative initiated to address unidentified challenges, for instance, socio-economic challenges, environmental challenges, cultural challenges. And also it is initiated to achieve, some socio-economic gains, and also to reverse, those challenges that we have been already facing, such as climate change, desertification, loss of biodiversity, and so forth. So it is, it is initiated based on the knowledge that the country needs this type of intervention at, this time in particular, so that this has make it to be an initiative to be absorbed by communities. If desertification would have not, the problem of our farmers might not be interested in, absorbing this massive initiative and to engage on and implement it. It is initiated to address their key challenges. It's initiated based on their challenges, and also it is initiated based on, expanding their opportunities, so that those farmers who have planted eucalyptus today, they know that they are going to get, a lot of money tomorrow. So it is initiative based on the interest, on the question or the demand of our people. It is a demand driven, so that it has become, very much, aggressively accepted by our community. That is one of the initiatives. It is problem driven initiative. And it is also the lessons that we learned is that in Ethiopia, in fact, this apply in many parts of the world, such as in Africa. If leaders have a clear understanding of their initiative, and if they are able to follow the planning and the implementation of this initiative, that particular initiative, that initiative is going to be successful. In the Green Legacy Initiative, it is initiated by the Prime Minister Office. It is overseen and followed up, monitored, and evaluated by the Prime Minister Office, and also different arrangements below the Prime Minister Office. That is one lesson. If the government own a particular agenda, and then try to implement and also try to share that idea with its cabinet and its government arrangement, that particular initiative is going to be successfully implemented across the nation. That is also because of the leadership, the vested interest, and also the persistent and the continued interest and the follow-up of the government leadership that make this initiative a persistent initiative, I may say.
Apart from those points, Doctor, let us shed light on some figures like this year, the Green Legacy program pays attention to cover 40% of the Abai watershed area, which is eventually the source of the Nile as well. So in terms of focusing on that specific area, one reason, and the other, you also focus on planting indigenous trees as well. So what are the peculiar elements that you pay attention in this year's program?
Indeed, this year we have recomposed our planning process to raise more seedlings in the Abai Basin. And that is, a driving factor for doing that. Already our communities have recognized the GERD issue, and everybody's heart in Ethiopia is already, vested, is invested to see the progress of, that particular dam. And then we wanted, as a Green Legacy Initiative Technical Committee and the Steering Committee, we wanted to associate and build something on the already, going on progress in protecting the river basin and also the dam to give Ethiopia the, badly needed energy supply chain, or to improve, to cover that gap. So what we did is that, we negotiated with regions, with districts to give due attention in establishing more nurseries within this basin. So from out of this 7.5 billion seedlings raised this year, close to 40% of it is, prepared across this belt, or the Abai Basin. That means that, there is already a vested interest of our society, our community farmers and the pastoral communities to protect that basin. And then as we push, to raise more seedlings in this basin, the acceptance was very high. So that means that, we are able to raise more quality seedlings across this belt. And this is going to be, a very important intervention actually for the sustainability of GERD, also for the sustainability of the flow of water through Abai Basin, then contribute a significant amount of water for the downstream countries. Because restoring a degraded highlands of Ethiopia, where the majority of the rain that feeds the Abai Basin or the Nile River comes in the highland of Ethiopia, leaving that part of the country to be degraded means that is to allow a significant reduction of water that will flow in the basin. So that means that Ethiopia has been giving due attention implementing this Green Legacy initiative by also considering that we need to keep the sustainable flow of same amount or even more amount of water in those transboundary rivers. So that is very important, and to reflect a little bit on the indigenous species. Indeed, compared to the year we have started the Green Legacy initiative, this year we have achieved a very significant change in bringing more seed to nurseries and raise indigenous seedlings. So according to the reports that we have from mobilized from all those nurseries, that out of these 7.5 billion seedlings, close to 1.6 billion seedlings are indigenous species. This is really a huge change compared to those 5 years, and in fact this needs to be our plan was of course to make 50% exotic and economic species, and also 50% indigenous species. We have been improving. In fact, we need to do a lot, compared to the amount of seedlings that we need to do on indigenous species, and that is what I can say for the moment.
Dr. Isov, is for everybody that planting trees have both ecological and economic benefits. let's move to the ecological benefit, especially in terms of alleviating the climate change problems at a global level. How do you see Ethiopia's contribution in terms of contributing to alleviating the global environmental problem?
Yes, as you said, global warming is a very serious challenge facing the globe and the world, and each country, in fact, I may say, be it rich or poor, be it in Africa or in EU, everybody is becoming vulnerable to the changing climate. The only difference between us is, in the form of adaptive capacity. Some of the countries might have the capacity, to adapt, and the others, like Ethiopia, might not have, that capacity to, adapt to or respond to that particular change. For instance, when massive landslide comes, you can see what has happened very recently in southern part of our country. When severe droughts that cover in many areas, you can imagine what will happen in poor countries in different parts of the world. So our difference is not in terms of vulnerability, but only in terms of our capacity to respond to that particular vulnerability. So the world has given due attention to respond to climate change. Since a long time, there are ongoing discussions, negotiations, like through COP, climate COP, desertification COP, biodiversity COP, and there are many COPs where the conference of parties or government leaders come together, negotiate, so on and so forth. So among those conferences, the Paris conference or Paris COP has brought us, the world leaders to some level to agree, mainly in quantitative form, kinding of, a little bit stronger agreement to mitigate climate change and also boost, the adaptation to climate change. So on Paris, one of the characteristics to that of that particular COP was for the countries to agree and report to UNFCCC their nationally determined contribution, meaning that the countries need to report to that UN platform, saying that, okay, by 2030, I will minimize my emission or by this amount of percent. So Ethiopia, in its updated nationally determined contribution, NDC, updated in 2021, we promised to the global community to minimize or reduce our emission by 68%. This is, in fact, a very massive or ambitious plan like that of the Green Legacy Initiative. Why we're, encouraged to promise to the global community to cut off our emission by 68% is also, we know that we have been implementing Green Legacy Initiative, which aims to do two things. On one hand, this is a platform for Ethiopia to ensure the cutoff, emission or greenhouse gas emission. On one hand, by reducing deforestation. For instance, we have reduced our deforestation from 92,000 hectares per annum, and last year 27,000 hectares per annum. This is really massive reduction of deforestation. That means that we have been significantly avoiding the emission to be going to to the atmosphere because of deforestation or land use, land cover change. That is reducing or avoiding the emission from deforestation. On the other hand, the Green Legacy Initiative has also been helping the government and the people of Ethiopia to sequester the already emitted greenhouse gas emission in the atmosphere. That means that because those seedlings that we have been planting today will undertake photosynthesis, that will help them to bring back those GHGs that already been emitted to the atmosphere, so that our seedlings that we have been planting today, last year and before, are able to bring, hundreds of millions of carbon dioxide, tons of carbon dioxide equivalent from the atmosphere, and storing that, very poisonous gas in the biomass of the trees and also in the soil. That means that Ethiopia, though we are really not a significant or contributor to the global climate change, though our contribution is so negligible, but a most vulnerable country because of climate change. But we have been trying to teach or trying to motivate the global community to also walk the talk, as we have been already saying that Ethiopia promised to the global community to restore 22 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. Now, this year, we have been almost restoring or planting a tree on 2 million hectares of land. And then we promised to the global community to reduce our deforestation. We have been achieving that through this initiative. We promised to the global community to minimize our emission, and through tree planting and integrated landscape management, we have been achieving millions of tons of carbon dioxide sequestration from the atmosphere. So the Green Legacy Initiative is really putting the government of Ethiopia and the people of Ethiopia on the right track to demonstrate to the global community what we have already pledged to do so. Yeah.
Doctor, maybe finally, we hear often some critics about the attention from the international community towards the Green Legacy Initiative in Ethiopia, and they say the international community has never paid enough attention towards Ethiopia's Green Legacy Initiative. And I heard the Ethiopian government has already submitted a request to the Guinness Book Record. What are the developments around that here, and what you do to attract more international attention and action towards the Ethiopian Green Legacy Initiative?
Globally, if you look at how those critical negotiations on climate change have been going, on those negotiations on biodiversity conservation, combating desertification have been going, the majority of them are really giving some fruit, but they are very slow compared to the challenge that the globe is facing. Every country needs, this negotiation go a little bit faster, so that, more countries, invest more attention or more resource on those challenges, so that we will be able to save our planet Earth, jointly, and also we implement different climate nature-based solutions to save our planet Earth. But as you said, that those negotiations are really very challenging and also going slow. But we don't have any options on continuing, negotiating with our neighbors, negotiating with other countries, because we cannot say that, okay, I don't go to this negotiation, I don't pay attention to those negotiations because they didn't understand or they didn't, value what I have been doing. We need to communicate. Look, in Ethiopia we have also, a limitation in communicating, in articulating what we have been doing, nationally to the global community. There we have a very serious gap. We have identified that gap, and now, we have been trying to, compose and recompose our message that we need to send to the global community, and also to participate on a critical platforms where we can show to the global community what we have been doing at home. For instance, in COP28, the right COP, where we have demonstrated, the effort of the government of Ethiopia to fight against climate change, to fight against desertification, loss of biodiversity. Several, thousands of people came to Ethiopia's Green Legacy Pavilion. Some were asking that, oh, the name is Green Legacy. And then even this name was able to attract, many peoples to come to our pavilion and see, what we have done and what we have achieved, and also see, take lesson from our challenges even. And then, we transported even seedlings physically and created a landscape there to show to the global community this is also what we have been doing, at a grassroots level. And then, many people were very much amazed by that sort of dedication of the people of Ethiopia and the government of Ethiopia, saying that, oh no, this is massive. Now I recognize that the government of Ethiopia is paying attention to save the planet Earth. And then we have been also trying to, communicate these results to the global community in different platforms. So the challenge was our representation, and also if we are represented, the way we communicated our achievements to the global community. Honestly speaking, I have attended, some platforms where, some peoples or some representatives of a particular organization or country are able to communicate a small deed or a small result, but in a massive way, so they get a lot of applaud. Compared to those communicators, the way we communicated our achievements or our interventions, our effort was really very much minimal. Indeed, now that we recognize that we got identify that challenge, now there is a change in tackling this limitation and this gap. For instance, last time at PM office, we inaugurated or launched the Green Legacy Initiative film, which is done by an external body, actually, an European company who came to Ethiopia, traveled into several sites where Green Legacy seedlings have been, planted, forests have been protected, and then they talked to the farmers who implemented the Green Legacy Initiative. They asked them what they got and how they did it, and then they composed those type of outputs in that film, and that film is going to be communicated to many peoples, and it is this way that we need to reach those stakeholders, and then if we communicate them, for sure they will change their attitude and come back. So as you mentioned, so far it was not really so much, but it is also because of the limited intervention from our side that we need to change, plan, compose our message, communicate, identify a good platform, and speak at that good time to good people so that our intervention will be considered. And indeed, as you said, this year, in April, we approached the World Guinness Book Records to also show to the global community sideway that Ethiopia has been planting millions of seedlings in one day, and also for them to monitor our plan for this day. But we traveled a lot of distance with them. The organization has assigned for us, for the government of Ethiopia, 2 senior advisors. We have been still working with them, but fulfilling those very detailed criteria of that organization needed us a little bit more time. For instance, if you take about the reporter, they need 3 different groups who need to monitor the activities on the ground and report to the organization as an independent stakeholder. They need witness, they need stewards, they need external auditors. So we applied, for instance, if they can accept our universities to serve as one of those 3 requirements. We submitted list of more than 700 NGOs registered in Ethiopia, if they can consider them, but they did not consider those, and they asked us that. So we decide, indeed, we are going to ensure that, but we postponed because the planting time or the planting season has been against us. Then we changed our mind to postpone this plan for next year. The other challenge with the Guinness Book Organization is also there was no such an experience registered by them where a country will plant such a very big millions of seedlings by mobilizing millions of people to plant seedlings across the nation. For instance, the main term they gave us that they can only monitor seedling to be planted at single site. But in Ethiopia, you have heard that we identified more than 8,000 sites where seedling planting will be taken care of, and we mentioned to them that they appreciated our very ambitious plan, but they say that they can only monitor seedlings to be planted at one particular site. That site could be big enough or small or medium, they don't mind, but need to be at only one side, which is really not our interest. So we have been discussing with them to change their attitude and understand the way we do the green legacy plantations that need to be implemented across the nation, where we are able to mobilize millions of people at a time. So this discussion has been continuing with them, and we will see what will happen next year. But we will show to the global community, for instance, what we have done this year, because these 600 million seedlings are going to be planted in geolocated sites. We don't consider seedlings to be planted today out of this site. People plant seedlings out of this site, but the report that will come to this situation room is only from those sites that are geo-referenced. And the reporting method is also not a manual one. We have been using a technology where telecom is sending a short messaging code to a particular guy who is reporting, the progress that particular site has been achieved, and it is only this reporter that be able to send a figure or a report to the telecom hub, and then from telecom hub the data will come to this AI situation room. That means that we are trying to demonstrate to the global community we are not only interested in planting seedlings, but also we have been trying to integrate technology and the science to monitor and evaluate our planning and achievement. And this alone will going to tell the global community a lot, and then encourage them to give due attention to the Green Legacy Initiative of Ethiopia. In fact, there are some countries who have been really closely working with the government of Ethiopia, supporting the forestry, natural resource activities that have been implemented. There are many embassies that have been working with us. There are many multilateral development banks that have been working with us. And also there are many NGOs, national and international, that have been supporting us. But the support that we received so far is very much minimal compared to the size of the initiative. And indeed, as you said, that we still call upon the global community to consider what Ethiopia has been doing to contribute to the climate change mitigation and adaptation. And also we call upon the neighboring countries, particularly those countries where Ethiopia has been, contributing the large share of water resource that has been flowing to this downstream country. We are happy that they will get more water, but indeed, they need to join us, the upper stream catchments, to restore, those ecosystems, so that more rain will come to this side, and then more water will flow in those streams. And indeed, they need to join us, and they need to understand what the people of Ethiopia has been doing on the ground.
Very, very shortly, a little earlier, State Minister for the Government Communication Service, Salamawit Kasa, publicly said so far, from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., Ethiopians were able to plant more than the quarter of the target, 157 million seedlings just in 3 hours. Do you think that in the rest of the time, the targeted plan, that 600 million can be achieved? What is your reasonable prediction towards that?
My reasonable prediction is on one hand that we planned, this year's plan very well. We organized our communities. As I said, these 600 million seedlings have already been transported to the planting site, and in many areas even seedlings were put on each pit that is prepared to plant the seedlings. And we have a very clear plan how many people need to go to a particular site, and those sites, as I said, are very much geo-referenced, and they are in the eyes or in the attention of our reporters who have been following these activities. And many experts are already deployed from the federal institution to the regions, supporting the regions to achieve what they have planned. And as you mentioned already, only from 12 to 9 I mean, like a quarter of it is already planted, and imagine we will continue planting seedlings the whole day. And we have been calling to reach, but for sure by now there is a massive change or a significant change in that figure. And also we have been communicating in regions, and they have been telling us that even the climate for today. Yesterday it was rainy and cloudy in many parts of the country, but today is a sunny day. It's very clear, cloudless, and that means the millions of people have been coming out to plant the plant seedlings. And for sure, when I consider what we have done in the first year, 1 day tree planting, and also when I consider what has happened on the last years, the 1 day seedling plantings, I'm more than confident that our people will also help us to achieve this year's plan.
Many thanks for your time, Doctor.
I thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, so you are watching our live transmission here from the Situation Room, where real data is being collected from across more than 84,000 plantation spots across the country. And of course, as we said earlier, since the beginning of this Green Legacy Initiative back in 2019, over the past years, Ethiopia was able to achieve, in terms of planting, lots of seedlings across the country. And of course, official figures show that 32.5 billion seedlings already planted in the past years. And this year, Ethiopia is also working to add another 7.5 billion seedlings to that figure, totaling 40 billion, including this year. So Ethiopia is working in both phase 1 and phase 2 Green Legacy programs, totally to plant 50 billion seedlings. A study shows that if the world can plant 500 billion seedlings, it can cut 25% of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So if 10 countries act like Ethiopia, they can definitely cut 25% of the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. And that means a lot in terms of addressing the global climate change problems that cause extreme weather conditions in different parts of the world. And to mention a few examples, and if you see the US, it's experiencing serious flooding this year, and Chile also experiencing the same scenario, while other parts of the world, like India, was hit by extreme heat waves that in 3 months and a half claimed the life of more than 100 people. So the world is already tested by the extreme weather conditions that comes out of the global climate change problem. So Ethiopia is working towards helping that effort to addressing those challenges. In the past 3 hours, more than 157 million seedlings have already been planted, according to a press statement by Government Communication Service State Minister Salamawit Kasa. Still, citizens across the country are continuing their efforts to meet the 600 million target today. Does Ethiopia succeed with this target number? We will see ahead of the time. And of course, from the experience in the past year and before, yes, we can reasonably predict Ethiopia can meet that target even beyond that. So stay tuned with us. We'll bring you updates from different plantation sites with different languages. Be with us.